You're listening to Horsemanship, Growth, and Gratitude with Miranda Allyn Horsemanship, where we discuss training wins and fails, mindset, personal growth, and everything in between. So grab your favorite cup of coffee or reins and let's ride. It's never too late to be what you might have been. Hey there, it's Miranda Allyn, and welcome back to Horsemanship, Growth, and Gratitude. I'm so excited today for this episode, and I think it's definitely going to be one of my all-time favorites. I can just feel it because it comes from a place in my heart. And it also happens to be episode number 7, and 7 is my favorite number. Why? My birthday is 7, the year I graduated 07. Just 7 has just always been my favorite number, and I know that this isn't a coincidence. I just think it's a wink from the universe. So this episode today is going to be a little less about horsemanship technique and more about personal development, identity, and something that I think that we don't talk about enough. The quiet grief that comes from dreams that didn't turn out the way we thought they would. But as you've heard me preach before, the more that you work on personal development, the better your horsemanship gets, because horsemanship is based on trust, respect, love, energy, and connection. Now, lately, I've been sitting with the realization that sometimes what holds us back is not fear of failure. It's grief. Grief from the version of life we thought we'd be living by now. Grief from the dreams that we chased hard and they just did not come to fruition like we hoped they would. Grief from the ones that we never fully gave ourselves even permission in the first place to pursue. And I want to say this clearly. I don't care if you're somebody who has chased a lot of goals or somebody who has let fear keep you from playing small again and again. Either way, the grief is real. I have been both. I have lived in seasons where I was an extreme goal-getter, always chasing the next big thing. And I've lived in seasons where I was scared and I played it small and I was just stuck fear-based thinking mindset. And I just had an abundance of limiting beliefs and I was just so afraid to move forward because I didn't trust myself or the outcome. But here's what I've learned. Goals can evolve for the better. Rebirth does happen, but only if you allow it to. Did you know that the reward doesn't actually come from crossing the finish line? It comes from the process, the journey of working towards goals. According to Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University, dopamine is not about pleasure, it's about the anticipation of pleasure. So what does that mean? It's about the pursuit of happiness, not the happiness itself. Now I'll link the video in the show notes below if you'd like to watch the short video clip of Robert Sapolsky explaining the study, but here's a shorthand explanation of it. In a study that was done with monkeys, the monkeys had a game where if the monkey pushed a lever 10 times, food would come out. To signal the start of the game, a light would go on to say to the monkey, hey, it's time to play. When the light comes on, the monkey's dopamine shoots up. And when he presses the lever, once the food comes out, the dopamine is already dropped back down and tapered off. Now with that same monkey, if the food comes out only 50% of the time, his dopamine, when that light comes on, skyrockets even more than in the beginning when he knew 100% of the time he was going to get that food. Why? Because the guarantee turned into maybe. Maybe it's my lucky day. Maybe I'll get it this time. Maybe. Regardless if it came or not, that didn't matter because once the lever pushing was done, the dopamine was already way lower and leveled out again. Sound familiar with casinos? So, what does that mean for us? Well, when we have a goal, we know that there isn't a guarantee that we will be successful. But what if maybe, just maybe, it's our year to win? What if it's our year to get that job, to buy that house, to get that win, that blue ribbon, or maybe even that world title? The possibility is very exciting. And as you start to take steps forward, doing that thing that you desired getting so much, your dopamine starts to increase and increase and increase. And because it's not guaranteed, the hit gets even larger. Now take a minute to think about the last big goal that you had achieved. When you crossed that finish line, how did you feel? Right? When you were able to check it off, how did that make you feel? How long did that high last before you thought to yourself, well, now what? How do I top this? What's next? My guess is probably not very long. And that's exactly what happens to many world champions. As soon as they've been handled that gold buckle, they go into a depression of now what? How do I stay on top? What's expected? Many world champions have said that in the beginning, they have set clear expectations with themselves that, hey, when I win this, I am going to allow myself a short period of time where I can celebrate and not think about what is next because they understand that mental crash that can follow. I myself learned this the hard way after college, and that mental crash completely derailed the first part of my horse career. And also, why now I'm so passionate about coaching and helping others to learn from my mistakes so they don't have to make them themselves. Now, during high school, it was no problem for me to stay highly motivated as I was working towards my dream of going to college in Montana to be a horse trainer. Once I got to Montana, it was super easy to pull those heavy scholastic workloads, the type that needed the dean's approval because I was technically double majoring on top of volunteering for Student Senate and on top of working part time from 8 p.m. to midnight every night as a cashier at the grocery store and being back in the classroom at 8 a.m. Oh, yeah. And also having time to train a young horse and to haul that horse 2 times a week to class. And there was some fun yet too because one in Montana, but it was so easy for me to stay motivated and keep going. And then it was still manageable to stay highly motivated while I kept receiving discouraging response after discouraging response as I reached out to professional trainer after professional trainer looking for a college internship. I will say every trainer was so kind and encouraging because they did remember what it was like to be in my shoes. And they were such great cheerleaders. And a lot of them wish they could have hired me, but they just said, hey, I'm not in a personal position where I can take any help on, unfortunately. But hey, you're giving me ideas. Maybe that's something I should look into. But that's proof right there that all those who are ahead of you are never going to be the ones to judge you for stepping up and trying. The ones who judge are the ones who are jealous because they're below you, because they don't have what it takes to step out. Once I landed a dream internship and completed the requirements for my internship, that's when panic set in. I had no clue what was next or what I was supposed to do. I thought something was wrong with me. How did I go from being so highly motivated and achieving what so many declared was impossible for me to now not knowing what I even wanted to do because what I thought was going to be this dream job seemed overwhelming, but seemed boring, but seemed unaligned and just not for me all at the same time. My head was just a mess. But what was actually happening was a very steep dopamine crash. It wasn't because it was a boring job that wasn't meant to be. Looking back, I now understand it wouldn't have mattered what trainer or what discipline that I would have been working with. I still would have naturally had that crash from crossing a huge finish line mixed with, oh snap, I'm officially an adult out on my own now. What the heck do I do? Why didn't they teach this in school? I thought something was wrong with me, so I pulled the e-brake because I didn't understand that the fulfilling part came from the pursuit, not the actual finish line. And when I should have been setting new goals, I walked away from what I spent years working my butt off of for because I thought it wasn't meant to be, since there wasn't the angels singing and the confetti flying type of experience that my subconscious believed should exist, since that's what I experienced up to that point in the pursuit. Unfortunately, it took me many years to understand this, but now that I do, I can use this understanding to my advantage to keep that momentum going through the challenging times when my dopamine is lagging. Because now I understand that what is actually going on in my body and my brain and how to just ride the waves out. And don't get me even started on mixing ADHD into the mix. Another important factor I want to cover is the mindset of either you win or you learn. There is no losing. Most of the time, you learn far more from the seasons and the experiences where things didn't work out the way you'd hoped for than when they did. Like for me with my internship. Every setback, every redirection, every disappointment, it's data if you allow it to be. And when you're willing to treat it as feedback instead of failure, it becomes preparation for who you're becoming. Sometimes that feedback shows us that that dream we thought we had wanted wasn't really meant for us, at least not in that season. And it's completely normal and okay to feel grief around that. Grief doesn't mean you gave up. Grief often means that you've grown. Sometimes it means that there is actually something even greater that's meant for you. For a long time, I knew exactly what my goals were. I had a clear picture in my head of what success was going to look like. I was going to be a professional horse trainer and a professional barrel racer. And for a while, that was my goal. And I worked very hard towards that by traveling the country and learning from whoever I could who was already living those goals because success leaves clues. At least I had that part right. That version of me wasn't wrong and she wasn't naive. She was responding to the information, the capacity, and the season of life that she was in at that time. Now I find myself in a new season, a season where I don't really want to travel that much far away from home and the kids, a season where I don't want to put myself at risk jumping on random horses for the public. So I'm in a new season where I'm recalculating what those dreams will look like going forward. Now that I can go back to prioritizing my own dreams and working towards them now that my broodmare phase is wrapped up. What's changed isn't the core of who I am, it's just the approach. The core has always been horses, leadership, confidence, and just helping others believe in themselves too. That part has not and is not going anywhere. But I'm recalculating now how I'm going to live that out. Right now, my goals look less like proving myself through physical output and more like educating, speaking, teaching, and mentoring. They look more like using my voice, my experience, and my mistakes to help others feel safer, more confident, and more capable, both with their horses and in their lives. That doesn't mean that the old dreams were wrong. It just means that they were part of the path that led me to where I am today. And it also doesn't mean that I'm closing a door on anything forever. Who knows? Maybe I'll still get to be a professional barrel racer, but maybe it'll look more as a futurity trainer where it's just less shows that I get to travel to, or I compete at a local rodeo circuit instead of the PRCA. It just means that right now I am choosing an approach that fits the season that I'm currently in. I'm giving myself permission to evolve without shame, permission to let my goals grow with me, not against me, permission to honor the core of who I am without forcing the container. For a long time, I struggled with that, and I thought that I was ignoring my destiny, and I thought that I was playing small. But what I just finally realized is that I wasn't stuck, I was just grieving. And it is okay that there's a little grieving of your old dreams before stepping fully into your new ones, because those days and those dreams were a lot of fun. But the great part is, on the other side of that grief is realignment and an even bigger purpose. Listen to me. You do not need permission from anyone else to pursue your dreams, and you definitely do not need permission to be proud of yourself for all the good hard work that you've been putting in. Sometimes the people around us don't understand our vision, and they may say they support us, but their actions don't always line up. And trust me, that can hurt deeply. But you know what? Those dreams weren't placed on their hearts for a reason. They were placed on yours. And God doesn't need anyone else's approval or budget to work through you. I have wrestled a lot over the years with the fear of feeling behind, that panicky feeling like I missed my window or I should have been further along by now. 10 years ago, if I would have known what had happened with the dopamine crash, how would things have been different? But you know what? But that's fear. That's not truth. Whenever that shows up, I find myself going back to this beautiful George Eliot quote. It's never too late to be what you might have been. What's so powerful about this quote is it doesn't minimize the past. It doesn't erase the heartbreak, the detours, or the seasons we were in that we were just trying to survive. It honors them. Every twist, every pause, every failed attempt becomes part of the foundation you're building from. You're not starting late. You're starting in the exact season that you were meant to start, with the wisdom, the resilience, and the clarity that you simply could not have had earlier. Your dreams aren't overdue. They're finally ripe. That quote also reminds me that the timeline from fear isn't real. It's not truth. It's just fear trying to keep me playing small for my protection. After all, our brains are still wired to this day to be a caveman playing small with simplistic routines so we can conserve energy for survival. In all of my trials and tribulations, I truly believe now that the universe had to break me down so it could rebuild me back up into the person who is capable of stepping into the bigger cowboy boots that I'm meant to fill. And I believe that the same goes for you. I truly believe I wouldn't have had the wisdom, the resilience, or the clarity that I have now if success would have come 10 to 15 years earlier. The timing mattered because the becoming mattered, not despite the hardship, because of it. One final thing I want to leave you with is learning to listen to your body because emotions trigger the autonomic nervous system, causing real physical changes. For example, shame shows up in your face, often with heat, felt, flushed cheeks, and it can activate the freeze response of just wanting to hide. Anxiety can be felt in your chest, such as tightness of the chest, hard to breathe, rapid heartbeat, and that it normally activates the flight or fight response. And intuition normally comes in the gut. It taps into our primal awareness and it's felt deep in our body's core. And it can either feel like a pit or a knot in our stomach, or sometimes even a light or a happy feeling. So when you recognize these physical signs, it allows you to do the name it to tame it, and it helps you process your emotions more effectively. Because learning to tell the difference can help you stop mistaking fear from truth and start trusting yourself again. So, if you're feeling behind, if you're questioning your path, or if you're grieving the life that you thought you should have had by now, you're not late. You're becoming. And you're allowed to give yourself permission to move forward with pride and joy and trust, because it's never too late to be what you might have been. Thanks for tuning in to Horsemanship Growth and Gratitude with Miranda Allyn Horsemanship. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend who loves horses as much as we do. And while you're at it, be sure to check out my website, mirandaallyn.net, that's ALLYN, to stay updated on the launch of my upcoming online course, Essentials of Horsemanship. And until next time, remember, horsemanship is in the details.